Hi, friends. Thank you for joining us again on Food for Thought. My name is Sunil Chandy. I am the rector and priest here at Christ Episcopal Church, and this is Food for Thought, a ministry out of Christ Episcopal Church. And we thank you for connecting with us to this moment and being with us and helping us to journey in this life. And when this program is going to be aired, it's going to be a time. It's going to still be in the beginning of this new year, and so. Today we have a wonderful guest who will help us to navigate some of the feelings that we have around this time of year, especially as we move forward in the various ways that we do, especially in the midst of this COVID-19 Omicron variant challenge that we have. But if you are here with us, please do connect with us. Tell us that you enjoy this programming, and tell us if there's something that we need to improve. Also, let us know what that is. We want to do whatever we can to connect and be helpful as you face the various challenges of your life. But know that but at the end of the day, it's knowing that we're here with you, walking with you on this journey of life. I'm before we begin with our guests, and I'm looking forward to having this wonderful conversation. I'd like to read with you a little bit from Nehemiah chapter 8, verses 1 through 3. This is Nehemiah chapter 8, verses 1 through 3. All the people gathered together into the square before the water gate, and they told the scribe Ezra to bring the book of the law of Moses, which the Lord had given to Israel. Accordingly, the priest Ezra brought the law before the assembly, both men and women, and all who could hear with understanding. And this was the first day of the month, of the seventh month. He read it from it, facing the square before the water gate, from early morning until midday, in the presence of men and women and those who could understand, and the ears of all the people who were attentive to look at the book of the law. And Ezra opened the book in the sight of all people, where he was standing above all the people. And when he opened it, all the people stood up. And then this continuing, I'll just read the rest of the passage. Then Ezra blessed the Lord, the great God, and all the people answered, Amen, Amen. Lifting their hands, they then bowed their heads and worshiped the Lord with their faces to the ground. So they read from the book of the law of God with interpretation. They gave the sense so that the people understood the reading. And Nehemiah, who was the governor, and Ezra the priest, and the scribe, and the Levites who taught the people, said to all the people, This day is holy to the Lord your God. Do not mourn or weep, for all the people wept when they heard the words of the law. Then he said to them, Go your way, eat the fat and drink sweet wine, and send portions of them to those for whom nothing is prepared. For this day is holy to the Lord, and do not be grieved, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. I love that passage. It's actually the passage that is going to be read this coming Sunday and the third Sunday of after the Epiphany. And I love it because it frames kind of our conversation that we're going to have today. We're at the beginning of a new year, the end of, we've just come through the end of a previous year. 2021 is gone, it's history, and 2022 is before us. And I know at this time of life, at this time, I know I shouldn't somehow, or somehow I get into this conversation where I think, I feel kind of depressed of all the things that I didn't do, of all the things that I didn't get through this past year. And as I look at all my dreams and hopes and resolutions at the beginning of the new year, and then I'm looking forward into this new year, and I think of all the things I'd love to do, and and there is this. I mean, I don't totally get depressed, but I mean, there's this time where I'd say, "Oh my God, I wish I had done this, this, and this," and you could get yourself down. And and this passage, I think, speaks to us a little bit about that feeling of being depressed because life isn't working out the way that you expected or hoped for. you know and um and so the context of this passage is that the people of Israel are coming back from the exile, Babylonian exile. They're allowed to come back into Jerusalem, the 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 city that has been ransacked and overtaken by the Babylonians and then the Persians. So they're actually coming back from conquered land, and the Persians allow them to come back to their homeland. And Ezra is the priest and Nehemiah is the governor, and they're called. They see Jerusalem, and it's a ramshackle place, and the wall isn't built up, and people are wondering what's happening, and and they think about their past, and they say, "Oh my God, woe is us. We've been through so much, and we're so bad." And then they pick out the book of the law, the book of the law, and they say, "Hey, look, we haven't been doing what we should be doing." And so there's this moment where they feel depressed and anxious, and that's when Ezra says, "Look, Ezra and Nehemiah, through their actions, say, look, don't mourn or weep. Learn from what we've encountered, but then take stock of who we are, and then let's celebrate, because we're here. We're here right in this moment, and there's a possible future. And if we just take a step towards it, God will be with us." So I love it. It's this idea that, yes, we're not always going to be happy, but there is a joy that's present with knowing that you're walking with someone. And if that someone is God, there's a joy in knowing that there's going to be challenges along the way. And we do our best, but God will somehow provide the rest. And we just move forward with each other. And in the moment, relish the fact that we were together and that we could celebrate together, that we're together, and maybe drink wine. That's always good. Or, eat, sup together, and just walk together, encouraging one another. All the stuff that happened in this past year, good learning experiences. What do we learn from it? And then as we think forward into the future, how we want to be together, it gives us great possibilities from those insights that we get. Today's guest is Sharon Younkin, and Sharon always has insights for us, and I'm grateful that even though this past year was filled with challenges, I was able to walk with people like Sharon, and we were able to listen to her to find insight and joy and possibilities, even in the midst of our challenge. And so, Ben, please bring her on board and so we can have a great conversation. Hey, Sharon.
Awesome, Neil. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Everyone.
Oh.
So, do things look a little different to you?
Oh my God! You look so colorful today. I mean, you've got all the colors going on there, and
I think I do have every single color today.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's rainbow. Yes. That's for sure. And I don't see the deck in the behind anymore. I see like a curtain
No.
that's not as
Yes.
colorful. And I see I think it's like a mini surfboard.
Yeah. I'm not sure what this is. I think it's like maybe something like decorative. Yes.
Is it decorative? Is it useful, or is it decorative?
I don't think it's useful, but I could be wrong. I think it's just decorative. Yes.
All right, it looks good.
But I thought, could share a spot with me here on the on the seat. And yes, this is because you want to know why I look different, because this is my Floridian look here. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We're in Florida.
When in Rome, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta. Yeah. And so I was listening to what you were saying, and I do want to add, I want to talk, I totally agree with you. I have some of the advantages. I feel great today because you want to know why? Because I started the day with pickleball. These are the fundamentals. I had my smoothie. I put on bright, cheerful colors that make me feel happy. These are all strategies to use to help with mood.
Yeah.
And we're all vulnerable right now with COVID for sure. And I was thinking about, last fall, I needed to have this because it's been a lot of strain and pressure on all of us with
Right.
COVID. And last fall, I can sort of start to understand. One of the interesting things about being a therapist during this time is that when I'm talking to my clients, I can totally understand a lot of what they're experiencing because I'm living through the pandemic with them at the same time. And so things may be happening in my life that I can relate to in terms of struggles. But one of the things that I found really stressful last fall was I had an elder in my family, a loved one who was having radiation therapy.
Yeah.
And so I was going to treatment with them and helping. And so it made me realize the level of stress you feel when you are caring for or you have someone in your family who's immunocompromised. It's
Yeah.
a whole nother level of stress that you feel
Yeah.
with. And as a result, couldn't sing in the choir. So there were things that was a big part of support. So I was ready. I was definitely ready for it to do. I was recognizing, I think, by sort of the grace of God and having the connections like I do with Food for Thought and all of these things we've been practicing and doing together, I was able to push through. And I had my daughter living with us. She was transitioning and she ended up getting her first professional job. So, there was a lot going on. But so it made me really think. And I have the good fortune, I'm so grateful to be able to be here right now. But there folks are feeling a lot of those pressures, these different pressures. And sometimes it can get to the point where it starts to you start to feel depressed and
Yeah.
it can affect your mood. And especially this time of year with less sunlight, then, we were talking about like light lamps and how they can be so helpful. Um, but I think it would be good to talk a little bit about what is depression.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
So,
And
so tell
so,
us, tell
yeah.
us.
So I will say, first of all, nobody feels normal is not to just feel ecstatic all the time like that. I remember at one point thinking, well, a healthy person just always feels happy, right? You
Yeah,
know,
right.
and I realized, no, a healthy person feels all sorts of emotions,
Yes.
but they allow for their feelings. And when we allow for our feelings, they pass through and they don't stay with us. And so healthy people feel all sorts of emotional. They feel sad. But the difference is with clinical depression, someone may feel sad or down or low most persistently, most of the day, all of the day, for at least 2 weeks straight, every day. And in addition to having that low mood, they have at least 5 out of 9 symptoms. And things like typically changes in sleep, sleeping too much or too little, changes in appetite, losing appetite entirely or eating much more, low energy, um, trouble concentrating or making decisions, talking more slowly or moving more slowly, um, feeling worthless or like a failure, losing interest in their usual activities, having low motivation. And sometimes folks in low places can have thoughts of wanting to harm themselves. Um, and so typically, you have a cluster of at least 5 of these symptoms along with a low mood and trouble functioning can get to the point where sometimes folks have trouble getting out of bed or showering or doing, sort of those kinds of things. Um, so it's important, yeah, and to be aware of that. And you can be, the it's amazing how the difference just getting outside and even getting some natural light or getting light of some sort can help, because there's actually the sunlight going through when we look at natural light, it activates a part of the brain where a hormone is released that helps with mood. So there are actually physiological reasons why natural light. So when you're in the colder climates, you got to bundle up and try to get out 15 minutes a day for a little bit of walk or and motion and exercise. I know you're doing your Fitness Fridays,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I like it.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think about, you know, so some of this real depression that's over 2 weeks long, that causes you to, that is marked by lack of interest, thoughts of harm, self harm, and all of the things that you listed. Those are all things that if we have signs and symptoms of, then we should really talk to somebody and really engage in some professional work. But I also know that, like, there are times that we go through these peaks and valleys, right? And
Yeah.
one of the things that and it seems that, I think you suggested before, that if you have these peaks and valleys and you stay in the the valleys for too long, it creates like a pathway that is well worn and used, and can actually lead to further staying in that valley. And so one of the things that really helps me is to move out of that period of real sadness, is to do things that helps me to kind of engage with life. And walking outside. I love talking with you. I love talking
Mhm.
and finding insight. I love praying. I love, you know, uh, just exercising. Exercise is key for me. I mean, this morning,
Mm.
Simi and I went and worked out with our personal trainer. Yes, it was raining and windy, and and it was dark in the morning. And Simi was saying, well, Simi and I were both saying, should we go? And then we said, no, we don't want to disappoint our Jason, who's training us. So we went anyway, and it was. And then afterwards, we felt so good about
Yeah.
ourselves, being able to move our body, and then we also ate well in the morning. So it was like
Mhm.
this idea that sometimes we go into these little valleys, and then what do we do? I mean, you work through
Yeah.
those emotions, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's that definitely is something that can happen, right? So sometimes what will happen is someone might have a stressful event and they're thinking about it, they can't sleep, and so their sleep gets disrupted for several nights. And because they can't sleep, they're tired the next day. And then maybe they don't exercise, or maybe they don't cook for themselves. So all of these variables are connected and interconnected, and you can see someone can kind of go into a downward spiral.
Yeah.
So a lot of the treatment is often taking these different variables, sleep and eating and exercise and movement, and trying to sort of have, work things back up instead of spiraling down. Right.
Yes.
And it's a lot of times working with mood is not just, there's not just one magic answer. It's a lot of little things that you have to do. And I will say, yeah, but that's right. We all have, like, I have enough self-awareness now through my work, through my own experiences. I know I have to be careful when it comes to things like mood. So I know what I have to do. Like, okay, I know I have to now start doing something more physical, or I have to have more connection, or I have to be, socialize a little bit more, or maybe I have to eat healthy. Like, I think we all have vulnerabilities that we have to monitor and sometimes be more careful about. So I can appreciate what you're saying. And it sounds like you have that same awareness too, self-awareness, where, you're like, okay, and can kind of feel like, I got to sort of do something here and do the things that work for me. There is a form of therapy called behavioral activation, where literally it's the basis of it is that you have to do something. You have to use energy to get energy. A lot of times when someone's depressed, this is a tricky thing about depression. It sort of fools us into thinking, I have no energy. I'll do it when I feel like doing it,
Yeah.
right? And two of the worst things that you can do are to do nothing and to isolate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So if you think of it like every emotion has an action urge. And the action urge with depression is to withdraw, it's to isolate. And if you do the opposite of the action urge, that's how you change the emotion. So
Wow.
what's the right? So what's the opposite of withdrawing and shutting down and isolating? It's to try. It's movement, and it's interaction,
Engagement.
engagement.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and of course, like we were saying, if someone has is very severely depressed and really having trouble functioning and having thoughts of self-harm, absolutely, you want to get that professional help for sure.
Yeah.
But just to understand, because conceptually, I think sometimes people don't get that and they get pulled into the trap of depression. They fuse with it instead of thinking this is a depressed mood and how am I going to respond to it? You have to use energy to get energy, really.
I love this. It resonates with the behavior activation.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Behavioral
really,
activation. Yeah.
I think that's really, I mean, I know that that's how I do things. I have a feeling that's, in order, like, there's a, like, and then what happens is the self-talk when things don't go right,
Yeah.
and then you have the self-talk, oh my God, it's terrible, and, and so,
Right.
and so the thing is, the self-talk is, so it puts you even further down. It really, really, the self-talk is around self-worth, that type of thing. And so,
Yes, exactly. So there's the behavioral piece, like we're talking about the behavioral activation. And then you're right. They're also a big part of depression is how we talk to ourselves, the critical self talk, which is why I've been emphasizing self compassion so much. Because essentially, self criticism is really just a way of, it's a fight or flight response where when we feel threatened, something goes wrong, we make a mistake or we have a failure or something, we're struggling with something, we go into this primitive part of our brain, fight or flight. And so we fight ourselves. We're attacking ourselves because if I make a mistake, I'm the threat. I'm the one who made the mistake.
yeah.
And so that this negative self-talk is really destructive and it really makes people vulnerable to depression. And so that's why I've really been emphasizing self-compassion right now. Really, really important to, and you can access the self-compassion with a soothing touch and talk to yourself the way you would a good friend. And, there are different thinking styles that can make people vulnerable to depression. People can have a lot of all or nothing thinking or should thinking. And so I think, basically a healthy way of thinking is to try to find the middle path. That's going to make you less vulnerable to anxiety or depression, is to find, both. We can, if we're too extreme in our thoughts, too rigid, the more flexible you are with your thinking, the healthier you will be. So
It's interesting. The self-talk is really, especially after, not doing something or for a while and not meeting some of the expectations that I might have of myself, and especially in this new year, as you move past the old year, you think about all the things that you could have done, should have done, all the expectations that you have, and then you start moving into this self-talk that's negative. One of the things that has helped me, I think, and I love the way you framed this. I mean, it's this idea about self-compassion, and how I access self-compassion is when I do morning prayer. There's this
mm,
there's the confession part that I have, right? There's
mm,
confession before morning prayer, and so the night before, I'm usually thinking of all the things I did wrong, and then with the confession, I it's almost like a relief for me, because I I I name it. I say all the things that I didn't do, and then I just say, okay, God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
right.
Sunil, that I didn't meet your expectations. God, I'm sorry I didn't meet your expectations also. And then there's this absolution that's offered to me. God loves me regardless.
Mm.
And then I'm able to then it's beautiful. I don't know. It's this mind shift for me, uh,
Yes.
because then I feel free, and then I start to think about all the things I'm grateful for.
And then you can talk to yourself like a good friend probably at that point, like you
That's
would to a good friend, right?
that's exactly it. Because
Yeah.
I'll tell you, as a priest, I'm I want to mediate a sense of hope for the people that I'm talking to, my parishioners, and
Mm.
saying, hey, look, we all screw up, we all make
Yeah.
mistakes, it's
Yeah.
okay. But
Exactly.
talking to,
Yeah.
but for myself, I'm always
Yeah.
the harshest critic, and
Right.
and for that moment, it's kind of like this idea that God forgives me and loves me regardless
Mhm.
of all the mistakes that I've made, and and gives me the power to make choices that are good and hopeful and joyful, uh, from now on. And I do this almost every day because every day I make some mistake, right? you know,
Mhm. We
life
all
is
do.
so perfect, right?
Yeah, we all do. I love that. I think that's so beautiful, and it's a way of, um, helping you to really connect to that caring part of your brain, the more evolved part, where you're able to really then talk kindly to yourself and the way you deserve to really, talk
Well,
to yourself. And
self-talk is so hard. I
it
mean,
is.
and I know that if I don't do that piece in the morning somehow,
Mm.
I carry it with me through the rest of the day, and then it goes into the next day, and then I
Mhm.
don't wanna do the things that I need to do in order to feel healthy and hopeful, you know?
Yeah. Well, what we're talking about reminds me, I want to point out a resource too to folks, 'cause I think it's along this line that we're talking about. And there is a national organization called the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance. And Ben, we have the link, I think, for this. And so, what would be a good exercise, I think, for folks too, right now, is they have this wonderful workbook, Father Sunil, that I've discovered. One of my folks told me about their wellness wheel, and then I went to their website, and they actually have this wellness wheel workbook. So if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see it says DBSA Wellness Wheel. COVID-19 is specifically designed for COVID-19. They talk a little bit about the stressors and how we're more vulnerable to depression because of everything we're all going through. And there are 7 areas that they have you assess for, and this is perfect this time of year because not only are we thinking about kind of what did we go through last year, what did we learn, what do we, hope to learn, but we also are thinking about possibly, kind of how we want to move forward. So one of the 7 areas to assess is environment. And they have these beautiful questions perfectly designed for stressors that maybe we've been experiencing because of COVID-19. The environment's been tough. We've been working at home a lot, or um, there's social, right? Social areas have been limited because of lockdowns and restrictions. Um, but one of the nice things you'll see in the blue there highlighted is the link to their they have support groups, online support groups. And these support groups are fantastic for people who might be struggling with depression. They're run by other folks who've had depression who've been trained. So take a look. They have almost a group almost every day that runs. They have you in this workbook. You assess your physical wellness goals. How are things going physically? Self-care, exercise. If we scroll down a little bit more to Ben, um, you'll see the next one, which should be financial. Sometimes it's financial stressors. There's been a lot of financial stress with COVID. And so there are specific questions designed for you to think about in terms of your financial wellness. If we continue on down, there is occupational, and continue on down. Intellectual, like learning new things. One of the things you and I have talked about in this program too are ways, how can we grow during this challenging time? How can we, you know, work on ourselves in that respect? And then spiritual. And I wonder if there any way to make the questions a little bit bigger so we can see them on the screen, Ben? Specifically, there may not be, but if you
Yeah.
scroll, great. If you scroll down a little bit more, here we go.
Mm.
Um,
Oh,
if you
yeah.
belong to a faith community, how have you been able to stay connected? Gratitude. So they talk a bit about gratitude. Can you remember the first time you ever felt a sense of belonging in this world? Write down, you know, kind of what that was about. So there are different questions you can work on and think about in addition to setting your wellness goals. So I really liked this COVID-19 wellness workbook. These 7 areas specifically are designed to address areas that people get into trouble, which can contribute to depression. So by working on wellness in those areas, and then you also have access to this really wonderful support group during this time when people might be feeling a little bit isolated with the spike in COVID.
Yeah. Oh, this is beautiful. I think I'll try that out today. In fact, I think I love especially I mean the questions on spirituality. That was very good, and so I'll try.
Mhm.
I'll do it all and work it.
Yeah. So it's DBS Alliance. DBS Alliance. Yes.
Maybe Ben could put that up on the screen somewhere, because although we have it on our chat function, but maybe the screen would be able to do that.
Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance. And this is an organization that's been around for at least 30 years. It was under another name. I remember 30 years ago when they first came out, but they've grown quite a bit, and I've been very pleased with their resources and what they offer. So
Great.
yes.
Thank you, Sharon. And Sharon, I mean, even though you're so clear in terms of our conversation, where I wouldn't have imagined that you were in Florida. So it's good. It's good that
Yes.
this is. I'm grateful that we have this technology to do this. Um,
And that's environmental wellness, right? That's one of the things they talk about, like get outside more, get outdoors, do what you can. Yeah. So I know. And you're right, Father Sunil. So we can stay connected still. I can still be part of this community,
yeah,
which is really important to me. This community, like I said last fall, when I had to pull back a lot, you know, I've had support like this community, which was really helpful
yeah.
and gives me strength.
And you give us strength too. The
Yeah.
wisdom and insight that you give us is important, and so hopefully we'll continue to connect well this way,
Yeah.
and then I'm looking forward to when you get back here in person. Definitely,
I am too, and I'm looking forward to singing again. That's going to be a very happy day for me. And yes.
yeah, definitely. Well, thank you again, Sharon. This has been a
Yes.
wonderful conversation. God bless you.
God bless you too.
Folks, Sharon offers us some great thoughts, especially during this time of transition as we move into this new year and as we continue to struggle with COVID-19 and the variants of it. I hope that this has been a helpful conversation with you, and we're going to continue to have these do food for thought twice a week at least, and then we have Ask a Priest, so you can ask me any questions, and I urge you to send your questions that you might have, and I'll try to come up with an answer that's theologically sound and biblically sound, and one that is hopeful for you as well. And then finally, Fridays, we're starting a new thing this year, and Sharon just alluded to it, and that's Fitness Fridays. I think fitness is so very important for us, especially as we deal with the COVID-19 crisis, and then as we deal with crises in general. I was talking with my wife about the working out experience, and my wife and the trainer that we have, Jason Stevenson, who has been on the show before. We were talking about how it's not just our physical bodies that we feel better about. We're able to think a little bit clearer, especially as we engage in some challenging work. And so my wife's a pharmacist, works in the hospital system, and she's got all sorts of challenges in terms of uh, thinking problems and issues. And so she's noticed that when she works out and when she exercises and eats right, she's able to think clearer. There's a fog that dissipates. And the same thing happens to me too as I engage in my work. And so we're doing Fitness Friday. So and part of the reason why is just to encourage our people to just exercise, to get out there, to learn about exercise, and we'll have a therapist to come in and talk about the benefits, a dietitian to talk about how we might be able to readjust our diets, a personal trainer to talk about how to engage out in the world in activity, and then, of course, a chiropractor to talk about body movement and so forth, and other guests as we continue the program. But I hope that you'll connect with that too. Same time, 12 to 12:30, and you could, of course, watch it at any time on Facebook and also on our website. You can access all of these Food for Thought episodes. But as is our tradition now, as the time for us is ending, let us end our time in prayer. And this is a prayer written by Bishop Thomas Brown of Maine. And I really have to get a hold of Bishop Brown because I'd love to have him on the show, because we've been talking about him all this time, and we've been praying using his prayer. And so we'll reach out to him. But the Lord be with you. Let us pray. Jesus Christ, that you traveled through towns and villages, curing every disease and illness. At your command, the sick were made well. Come to our aid now in the midst of the global spread of the coronavirus. Heal those who are sick with the virus. May they regain their strength and health through quality medical care. Heal us from our fear, which prevents nations from working together and neighbors from helping one another. Be present with those in authority who are making hard decisions. Support the medical professionals, emergency responders, counselors, and caregivers. And we ask this all in your name, Jesus. Amen. Join with me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Friends, go in peace to love and serve God. Spread the light of Christ to the world around you. The world needs it right now.
Thanks for watching. Did you know that you can join Christ Church from anywhere in the world? If you're feeling connected to what we're doing, email us today at communicate@christchurchwesterly.org.